Hello, everyone, and welcome to Last Laps, where we circle the track for all the latest and greatest happening in the world of Formula One this week. My name is Adam Ferris. I do a variety of content for Motorsport and a variety of other companies, as well as myself. Typically, I'm in the second seat of a driver's, in terms of its Formula One team, and driver one in the driver's first seat is Tiggy, but she is currently on vacation, or some people might say a holiday, but we still have to report the news. And we're going to do that. And we have a bit of a special episode actually for you today, as we're going to dive into some of the some of the greatest moments of the past season, as well as a little bit of news, as there's still news that happens in the off season, and we are here to report it. So without further ado, let's dive in. As you know, Lando won the Drivers' Championship trophy, and this week he received it from the FIA awards ceremony. And as you may recall, I mentioned this in the prior episode that he doesn't actually get to keep that specific trophy. He has the opportunity to purchase a replica. I always thought that was bizarre, but I don't make the rules. I'm not in the FIA. That's why I'm here in this seat talking to you. He's the 35th champion in F1 history. It was a close battle to the finish in the final race, between Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris. But Lando got it by just 2 points, even though Max pulled away for the victory in that race. Some more news on the docket today. Audi officially has announced their team. They are the Audi Revolut Formula One team, after their partner Revolut, which is a British fintech company. Think like banking app. They help you with investments, manage your money, you name it. I'm not going to lie, part of me will miss the slime green Kick Sauber car. But as we saw teased, what was it, 3 or 4 months ago, maybe? It's a very Audi-esque livery, if we're being honest. I think it looks fantastic, but yes, gone are the days of the slime green, which kind of remind me of remember like Nickelodeon? I don't know if you were when you were a kid, you watched like the Nickelodeon Awards and people got slimed. It kind of reminded me of that color. So there will be a special place in my heart for just the oddity that was the Kick Sauber livery. But they're going to officially launch in Berlin in January of 2026. So we'll see the official livery, see what the car looks like. And excited to hear your guys' thoughts. If you like it, if you hate it, what you would change. Excited for the upcoming season in general. Now, in this upcoming season, it's going to be a little bit different, at least on the Red Bull side of things. As I'm sure you know, longtime Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko has stepped aside, and we're going to actually toss it to the driver one that I mentioned, my counterpart and co-host Tiggy, to touch exactly on what she thinks about this departure for Red Bull.
Thanks, Adam. One of the biggest stories this week has to be Helmut Marko leaving Red Bull after 20 plus years at the team with the organization. His role is somewhat far-reaching, but technically he's head of Red Bull's junior program. He's super close to Max Verstappen as the person who got him an F1 seat, developed him throughout his career, and there's a lot of mutual loyalty there. Max has been very loyal to Helmut over his career, and last year when all of the drama was sort of unfolding, he said that if Helmut leaves, then so will Max. Originally, Helmut had a contract through 2026, but the decision was made for him in Abu Dhabi to leave. He is 82, so that is kind of a prime age to retire, but it seems like his exit is also intentional with new leadership, more PR control, and just a sharpening up in general. Without both Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, it definitely begs the question of what the next era will look like for Red Bull. It seems like they're poised for a new era with new leadership and maybe a different set of norms, which I am personally very excited about. And I don't think Max Verstappen will go anywhere unless performance really falls off a cliff, but I have faith in new leadership to do well.
Thanks, Tiggy. Yeah, if I was 82 years old, I would probably be thinking of retirement too. That is a lot of stress. That is a lot of travel for somebody who's 82 years old. Even such a, I don't know, for lack of better terms, infamous figure as Helmut Marko. Now, something that Tiggy did not mention, which I'd like to touch on, is that on his way out, in typical Helmut Marko fashion, he basically made a statement saying that he thought that if Christian Horner, former Red Bull team principal, was ousted or let go or pushed to leave sooner, that Max Verstappen would have probably had the Drivers' Championship in the bag. It is to be determined if he will apologize for these comments since he's not on the Red Bull team anymore. Probably not. Anyways, I digress. That's kind of all we have for news this week. As I said, it was a little bit of a slower news week, even though that we're in the off season. There's always something that's exciting happens. So with that said, let's transition into some of the most exciting moments that this season had for us. And we've got an awesome slate of familiar faces from the motorsport side of things that are going to help us dive into some of the big moments that kept us watching and kept our eyes on the screen along the way. So without further ado, let's dive into journalist Ronald Vording. Ronald.
One of the biggest moments of the 2025 F1 season has to be, for me at least, the double McLaren DSQ in Vegas. I know ultimately it didn't change anything to the outcome of this season. McLaren already won the Constructors' title before that in Singapore. Lando Norris, like 100 kilometers away from where I am now, so at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi, clinched the driver title. So it didn't change that, but still it was a big moment in my opinion for multiple reasons. First of all, I was there in the paddock, as most races, and I still remember it quite well. We were in the paddock, busy with our media duties, so interviewing the drivers. But then we found out that both of the McLaren cars were not in Parc Fermé, but were checked by the FIA in their pit boxes. So then it became quite hectic. I remember waiting for 2 or 3 hours outside the McLaren hospitality area, not just for the verdict, because everyone already knew what was going to happen, but even more for Andrea Stella to show up, the McLaren team principal, and to give an explanation of how they could get it wrong. So that was quite a memory, like some hectic hours in the paddock that probably will stay with me for a while. But also 2 other reasons, because first of all, it gave us the spectacular ending to this Formula One season. I think thanks to what happened in Vegas and also thanks to the strategy blunder in Qatar, we got the title decider. Maybe it was not the most exciting title decider in the end, but still it went down to the wire thanks to that moment. So I think everyone in F1 and also all the fans, but especially Liberty Media in a way, have to be thankful, because commercially these weeks have been pretty good. The last reason, and that's the main one, is that in a way for me Vegas summed up the whole F1 season, and especially the second half of it. McLaren made some mistakes operationally. Of course, lots of talk about the papaya rules. McLaren still says, okay, in the end that has been a positive because we had to find a way to manage both drivers. But also Vegas showed that apart from that, and also Qatar showed it, that they have made some mistakes operationally. So I think that's in a way quite telling for the second half of the year. And of course, Max Verstappen won in Vegas, which also is telling for the second half of the season, because he pulled off. I mean, he didn't really finish it, but still it's a remarkable comeback, probably one of the most remarkable comebacks in F1 history. And for me, all of that came together in the Las Vegas paddock and in the Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend.
By the way, Ronald is our on-the-ground reporter for Motorsport. He does a fantastic job. Whenever I feel like I travel a lot, I look at Ronald's flight log, and it is incredible. But back to the moment of Vegas, I couldn't agree more. I was actually on the ground too. I wasn't in the paddock with Ronald, but I remember vividly being in a casino that night with a couple of friends and colleagues and getting that notification on my phone. And all 6 of us audibly went, "What?" And, you know, the casino probably thought we won some sort of jackpot of some sort, but in fact, we were responding to what we didn't think would ever happen. And honestly, was great for the Formula One scriptwriters because it made the season that much more exciting in the conclusion. That said, let's listen to the biggest moment from our trending writer, Alex Harrington. Alex, in your opinion, what was the biggest moment of 2025? Take it away.
One of the biggest moments of the season has to be Carlos Sainz standing on the podium for Williams. When you look at where Williams has come from, it's one proof that the budget cap is doing what it's supposed to do. And it wasn't just luck as well. It was the result of a team that's almost been rebuilt from the ground up and finally converting that potential that we all kind of saw into a real hard result. For James Vowles, that podium is massive. He's spent the last couple of years talking about long-term projects, the building of infrastructure, the proper collection and storage of data, and the kind of above all patience, really. But bringing in a driver of Sainz's caliber was a huge move. But putting that driver on the podium is the moment where you think, you know what, all these roadmaps, all these plans that were put in place, they're all slowly starting to come together, and now we're seeing the physical result of that. And it's a huge confidence boost for James personally and for everyone who bought into his vision. What I loved most, though, was the team culture on display. You could see Alex Albon completely invested in it. He was watching, cheering, properly celebrating his teammates' success, and there was no sense of jealousy. There was just this sense of pride at what the team had achieved. And I think this tells you a lot about where Williams is mentally right now. It feels like a united group all pulling in the same direction, and not just two drivers that are almost fighting for scraps in the midfield. And that's why I think this podium mattered so much to the 2025 season. It wasn't just a good day for the smooth operator. It was proof that, a historic team working within the budget cap with the right leadership and the right mentality can actually claw its way back up the grid.
Thanks, Alex. Yes, I am extremely bullish on the Williams team next season, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm a Carlos Sainz fan, and the smooth operator showed out. Couldn't have been happier for him in that moment. And of course, we have to hear from our very own Tiggy. What was your favorite moment? Let me know.
For me, one of the biggest moments of the season has to be the rookie podiums. We had Isack Hadjar at the Dutch Grand Prix and Kimi Antonelli podiums, and just an incredible showing from rookies in general this season. We came into the season with some of the most rookies that we've seen in a while. I think we had 6 rookies, which was incredibly fun to watch them develop, but actually seeing them stand on one of the top 3 steps throughout the season, and not only have that happen once, but have that happen to 2 drivers across the season was just incredible. Kimi Antonelli, obviously in a Mercedes, so maybe a little bit of a better car than the Racing Bull, but the Racing Bull's car this year, I think, was something none of us expected, and there were many memes throughout the season of how that was actually the senior Red Bull car and the actual Red Bull car was not as good. But nonetheless, very exciting to see Isack Hadjar perform the way he did, but also get the rewards of standing on a podium. We're only going to have one rookie next season in Arvid Lindblad, so it's going to be a different vibe, I think, for 2026, which might be good just given how much else is changing for 2026. But I'm excited to see this year's rookies really mature and hopefully make a lot of strides next year, especially with a clean slate. So Isack Hadjar and Kimi Antonelli are definitely on my to watch list.
Thanks, Tiggy. I think that's the beauty of rookies in any sport, right? You have this sort of dichotomy of potential and just the unknown. So whenever you have rookies on the podium, it's almost like an underdog winning. You just get that much more excited. And then that potential on that side of things, it's like, okay, maybe they're the next great. You just never really know. Now, those were the biggest moments of 2025, but we're going to transition into the favorite moments of 2025 from some of our favorite faces that you just saw. So without further ado, let's dive in. Alex, we'll start with you.
My favorite moment of the 2025 season was Nico Hulkenberg finally getting his first Formula One podium. We've talked a lot about the rookies, the next generation, but this was one of those rare race weekends where F1 felt like it actually rewarded sheer persistence. Obviously, Hulkenberg's been in and out of the championship. He's bounced around teams. He's carried this cursed record of most starts without a podium for years. And to see that story finally come to an end was just brilliant. And what I loved most was the way it wasn't just handed to him. For one, he had to fight through the field. He had to survive the chaos, and he kept his mind in it when he was fighting off Hamilton in the Ferrari behind him. And it was, it's properly earned. And you could feel how much it meant, not just to him, but to the whole paddock. The reaction on the radio, the celebrations from other teams. There was this sense of, that was overdue.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, it was one of those moments where you just really saw the entire Formula One community in terms of drivers, teammates, teams just really come together and just be so happy for a guy that's been in the sport for so long. I mean, it was just one of those moments. I remember scrolling through my TikTok, and almost every other video was a Nico Hulkenberg edit. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season I'd be seeing Nico Hulkenberg edits on my For You page, I would have been like, for what reason and why? But this moment had one of the makings of a, I know they have Drive to Survive, but it had one of the makings of a Netflix documentaries in itself. I mean, just to what you said, Alex, just a true story of persistence in a sport. And I couldn't agree more. That was a fantastic moment. Ronald, what was your favorite moment of the season?
My favorite moment of the 2025 F1 season, that's an incredibly difficult question because I've had the privilege to go to most of the F1 races myself and to witness some special moments up close. If you look purely at the racing, then maybe Australia, immediately at the beginning of the year, has been the most entertaining race. Changing conditions, F1 is always at its best at entertaining at changing conditions. So I would say probably in terms of the best racing, we have to go for Australia. But I will cheat a little bit and I will not pick a race, but I will pick a qualifying session. And for that reason, I will go for Baku qualifying. It was absolute carnage. I remember being in the media center, of course, a record amount of red flags. So we were in the media center thinking, okay, at what time do we even get back to our hotel tonight? Will we even sleep tonight or not at all? Can we maybe stay here? But in a way, it's also, I think, quite telling for the season as a whole to go for a qualifying session, because following another car, especially the effect of dirty air, all became much more difficult than it has been before. We had a round table with the FIA in Abu Dhabi, and they admitted they even thought about changing some of the technical regulations, just minor tweaks, but to make dirty air less of a factor. They already thought about it for 24, again for 25. Didn't happen because the teams didn't support it. But as a result of it, qualifying became more and more important. And George Russell described this F1 season as a run to the first corner. And in some occasions, it has been like that. So I think it's valid to go for a qualifying session. And then Baku has by far been the most exciting. Of course, all the crashes and all the red flags, which was interesting to follow, let's put it like that. But also massive surprises. I remember being in a press conference after that qualifying session with Carlos Sainz and with Liam Lawson. And they were looking around, especially Liam, saying, oh, I've never been here before on a Saturday or a Sunday, so where am I even supposed to sit? That was quite amusing. And then the guy in the middle was Max Verstappen, which is also quite telling because he gave us the quote on that very same day. No one could find a rhythm. And that was positive for me, because if no one can find a rhythm, pressure is really high on that final lap, and then Max is usually the guy to put it all together. So I think a lot of this F1 season also came together in Baku qualifying, and that's why, yeah, I probably, out of all the travels I've done and all the races I've been to, that's probably one of the moments to remember. Of course, together with the Hulkenberg podium, the Hadjar podium in Zandvoort, but Baku qualifying was quite special.
Thanks, Ronald. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There was just some of those qualifying sessions that, honestly, if you look back in retrospect, were just a little bit more entertaining than the actual race itself. I've noticed myself watching some of these races, and there's a ton of truth into what Ronald said and to what George Russell said. Of it really is just a battle of, honestly, 1, 2, and maybe sometimes 3 if 1 or 2 takes each other out. And so sometimes you just found those qualifying sessions that much more fast, entertaining. You don't have the overtakes, you don't have the fights. But sometimes it was just that much more exciting and entertaining than the actual race itself. So I couldn't agree more. Great take, Ronald. And last but most certainly not least, Tiggy.
My favorite moment of the 2025 season was all the way back in Australia. Anthony Hamilton comforting Isack Hadjar after his DNF on the formation lap in Australia. It's hard to choose just one moment, but to me, I think that moment felt like what F1 is all about. You have this rookie, a lot of promise coming into the sport, and just chaos in crazy conditions in Australia. He DNF'd on the formation lap with the wet and rainy conditions, and just heartbreaking. You know, you work your whole life to get into F1, and then your very first race on a global stage, you can't start the race before it's even begun. But what made that especially beautiful was the fact that it was Anthony Hamilton who comforted Isack when he was incredibly emotional after getting out of the car, because Isack Hadjar's favorite driver hero is Lewis Hamilton. So to be comforted by the GOAT's father on your very first race, who definitely understands all the ups and downs of this sport, and just, I can't even imagine how important that moment was to Isack for his own personal reasons and just his own career. So maybe not the most exciting moment on track, but to me, that was my favorite moment of the season. And then just to see how Isack stepped into his seat and really excelled throughout the rest of the season, get that podium, all of those things just really made that moment stick out for me.
Thanks, Tiggy. Yeah, especially as a rookie, I can just imagine that, you know, you have a moment like that. It just happens to be in Isack's first race that you are just so down on yourself. You probably feel like you failed the team. You probably have some imposter syndrome. Oh, do I even deserve to be here? And to have such an influential figure just support you. Again, it just helps humanize the sport that we all know and love. And of course, Isack after that had an absolutely phenomenal season. So it was almost like that just kind of skyrocketed him out of that maybe slight trough that he had in that initial first race. Thank you, everyone, for those fantastic moments. But now let's transition into looking forward to the future. You know, we're amidst the holiday season and everybody has wishes, everybody has dreams. And let's touch on some of those specifically for the Formula One season that's upcoming. So without further ado, Alex, we'll start with you. What is your wish for this upcoming season?
My F1 wish for the upcoming season is a podium for Fernando Alonso. It's fair to say that he's in his final chapter of his career now, and at some point he's likely going to call it a day. But before that happens, I want to see one of those legendary Alonso podium celebrations at least one more time. And what makes this realistic is Aston Martin with the changes they're making for next year. Adrian Newey, Honda, substantial investment. if they can hook it up just once in 2026, I would love to see one more Alonso masterclass.
Thanks, Alex. I think a lot of fans would love to see that. Also, is that a shoey in your backdrop? How did it take me that long to notice that? But we'd love to see a shoey in the hands of Fernando Alonso, or at least a little dance. Give us a little jig on top of the car, some vintage Alonso. I think the last podium that he had was Sao Paulo 2023. So it's been a while, and it would be fantastic to see one more. Next up, we have Tiggy. Let's hear it.
My wish for the upcoming season is a shakeup. I want to see at least one midfield or backmarker team from this season fighting for wins, podiums, maybe a top 3 in constructors. It could be Williams, it could be Aston Martin, it could be a huge surprise altogether. I honestly don't really care. I just want to see something different than the top 3 or 4 teams that we've seen, fighting up for those top steps. And I think similarly, I want strong performances from the new teams, Cadillac, Audi. Basically, let's just upset the order at the top to some degree, and I will be happy.
Tiggy, I love it. Give me Audi, give me Cadillac. I mean, heck, give me Williams, like you said. Let's shake it up a little bit. I love that. Next up, we have Ronald. What's your wish for the upcoming season? Let's hear it.
My biggest wish for the 2026 F1 season is actually a very basic one. My biggest wish is that F1 remains F1 and basically remains F1 as we know it. We all know completely new technical regulations coming in, new engine regulations, new chassis regulations, fully sustainable fuel, new tires, everything will change. And based on some of the talks I've had with drivers and also reserve drivers, I had a very interesting chat with Stoffel van Doorne after tire testing in Abu Dhabi. And based on all those talks, I think F1 will be different from a viewing perspective and therefore also different from the people back home. We all know DRS will disappear. Drivers will have active aerodynamics around the lap. As a result of that, they will have the, I was about to say manual override mode, but the FIA doesn't want us to use those words and also not use MOM anymore, so those terms will change. But it will all get a bit more complex and, let's say, different in terms of racing. And I just hope, and that's by far the main wish, that F1 will remain as attractive and appealing to the worldwide audience as what it's been in the last couple of years, especially because F1 commercially is booming in the US, but let's say worldwide. But there's one key element that they need to keep that going, and that's a good product, and that means good racing ultimately. And with 2026, all the question marks, all the unknowns, I really hope that will live up to the expectations. Also still some concerns in the paddock. I think the concerns are twofold. The first bit is about massive field spread. We always have that risk, of course, when we change the new regulations. I think the FIA knows it and already came up with some mechanism, including the ADUO system, which is a system to give engine manufacturers who fall behind to give them more development opportunities. So field spread will be there, but probably can be solved long term. The second one is far more important, and that's about what kind of racing do we get, and will F1 still be as we know the sport? And I just hope that will be the case. So that's by far my main wish when it comes to the 2026 F1 season.
Thanks, Ronald. Yeah, you bring up a great point. Change in sports is scary, right? And when it's this significant of a change, purists, people that have loved the sport and adored the sport for years and years get a little bit scared and worried that they're not going to like it anymore. But look, as true fans, we will adapt with the change and we will continue to love the sport of F1 as we do. And with that, I thank you, Ronald. I thank you, Tiggy. I thank you, Alex. You guys have been fantastic. You really showcased some of those moments, and that really, what really brought it to life. So I thank you for that. And also, I have some other good news. The voting period has been extended for the Autosport Awards. You can vote for your favorite drivers up until January 5th. Just go to autosport.com/awards voting to cast your vote. That's autosport.com/awards voting. And with that said, that's going to do it for us today. You can catch more Last Laps on Motorsport's YouTube and social channels. Thank you so much for watching.